And the program this afternoon is co-sponsored by the Bethany Baptist Church Book Club and the People's Organization for Progress. So just to start out, can I ask members of the book club to stand? We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughter. It's been a long and a hard struggle, and it's a struggle that still continues. It was for that reason, 3, maybe 4 years ago, the Bethany Baptist Church Book Club thought it's not enough that we are reading and becoming enlightened and becoming educated and learning about our history. But one of the goals of the club is dissemination and to share. And we decided at that point that we needed to get the entire church reading and the entire church on the path of education. And because of that, we declared that, I think that was the year 2012, that it would be the year of Claudette Colvin, and that we would use her book as a challenge to the entire church to read about this young woman and the magnificent work and the courageous thing that she did. I guess it's 59 years ago. So we're very honored to have her here. But I'm not the person who's going to introduce her. Mr. Ham is going to do that, but I just had to tell her how grateful we are for her courage, for her strength, and for the love that she obviously has had for her people. So thank you. We stand on the shoulders of strong men and women like her, and it's an honor to be in her presence. But it's also an honor to be with all of you, because obviously you have that same drive and that same commitment towards the uplift of your people. And by your people, I mean all of humankind, but especially all those who have been trumped on, who have been oppressed, who have been disenfranchised. And we have to be vigilant. It's not enough that we live in a warm house and have 3 good meals a day. And obviously, I have a few more than that. That's not enough. But we have to make sure that every man, woman, and child has that same opportunity. And it's because of people like Ms. Colvin that we are in the position that we are in. And I'm glad to see you here because that means that you are grateful for her work as well. So thank you for coming. I'm going to sit down because I was saying all day about her. And I'm going to bring to the podium Mr. Ham, who is the motivational, spiritual, political, social leader of the People's Organization for Progress and a good friend of Bethany Baptist Church. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
I'm very glad and very honored to be here and to have the opportunity to introduce our guest speaker for today. And I was sitting and reflecting on her contribution to the African American freedom struggle. And I had to go back in time a little bit and think about my own upbringing. You know, in the black community, there was a tradition of sending kids down south for the summer. And especially bad kids. And I was one of those kids that got sent down south for the summer. My family's origins go to Gainesville, Georgia. Yes, indeed, Gainesville, Georgia. Outside of Atlanta. And there's a train, if you go to Penn Station, Newark, today, and you stand in the waiting area, you look up at the big board that has all the trains on it, you'll see where they list the names of the train, a train called the Silver Meteor. Now, the Silver Meteor has significance for many of us because many of our folk came up on the Silver Meteor. The Silver Meteor runs from Florida to Maine. And many of our folks, you know, they were trying to get to New York, and they heard the conductor say, Newark, and they thought it was New York. And they got off in Newark. But seriously, in the late 50s and 60s, my family would go down south. I remember 1961, my mother's sister Gladys, my mother, my grandmother's sister Joan, and myself, we got on the train at Penn Station in Newark. And everything was fine. You know, it's exciting to go on a trip by train. But then something funny happened when we got to Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, the citadel of democracy. Something happened. The conductor came and told us that we had to move to the rear of the train. Now this was in Washington, D.C. Now why did this happen in Washington, D.C.? Because, as one person said in the audience, Washington, D.C. sat on that longitudinal line called the Mason-Dixon line. That line on the map that divided the North from the South. And when you crossed the Mason-Dixon, you crossed into those former Confederate states that during the Jim Crow era had laws that required the separation of the races on the buses and on the trains. And this was the situation that existed for many years. In fact, it existed just about from the end of Reconstruction to the end of Jim Crow. Black folk had to sit in the rear of the bus, the rear of the train. And you know that story. It wasn't just that we had to sit on the rear of the bus. People would go and pay their bus fare in the front and then have to disboard the train, go to the rear door, get on the train. Many times the train would leave. Sometimes people's hands and legs would get caught in the door and people would be dragged. It was a very humiliating experience. It's one of those things that reminded folk every day of the situation of racial oppression in the United States. And black people couldn't escape. Whether you were rich or whether you were poor, you were controlled by this system of laws. And recently we lost Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was the champion of the anti-apartheid movement, the first black president of South Africa. And we said, what a terrible system that was they had in South Africa. But the South Africans learned it from us. The laws of racial segregation, they lifted right from our laws. The system of Bantustans, of herding the people onto these small parcels of land for blacks only in South Africa, they lifted that from the system of Native American reservations in the United States. So when we talk about apartheid, remember we had apartheid here and we had it here first. But then the question is, how did we overthrow this terrible system of racial oppression and racial discrimination and racial control and racial violence? That system was overthrown by courageous people who came from all walks of life, most of whom their names we don't even know. But they stood up for us. And one of the things that's often overlooked when we think about the freedom struggle is the role that young people played in the freedom struggle. You know, February 1st is the first day of Black History Month, but it also is one of those significant days that talks about the role of youth in the struggle. It was 4 students from North Carolina A&T that sat in at a Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, and that started the sit-in movement. And within 18 months of that first sit-in, more than 3,000 young people were arrested in protests throughout the South. But there were other people who did not necessarily do it in an organized way, but who said enough was enough. And if it wasn't for those folks, we'd be sitting on the back of the bus today. Imagine that humiliation that generations have been able to escape because of the courage of people like Claudette Colvin, who we are so glad to have in our midst here today. I've been very fortunate in my life. 1971, in one meeting, Dr. King had already been assassinated, so I couldn't meet him. But I had been invited to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the summer of 1971, after I had been appointed to the Board of Education, the youngest school board member in the country at that time. And I was going to receive this award, this Youth Leadership Award from SCLC. And in one meeting, I was able to meet Coretta Scott King and Ralph Abernathy and Andrew Young, Jesse Jackson, and sitting in the room very quietly, she didn't have a big crowd around her, was Rosa Parks. And we all know and honor the memory of the mother of the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks. But at that time, I only knew one part of the story about the struggle in Montgomery. Many of us did not know of the role of Claudette Colvin, that in fact she was the first person to be arrested in 1955. And she was a young person, only 15 years old. But she had the courage of her convictions. And although the Montgomery bus boycott brought Rosa Parks to national and international prominence, we remember her memory today. It was Claudette Colvin's case of Browder versus Gale. Aurelia Browder, Claudette Colvin, Mary Louise Smith, and Susie McDonald. Those four, their case is the case that actually went and argued by Attorney Fred Gray. It's their case that actually went to the federal district court. And because it was appealed by Mayor Gale of Montgomery, it went to the U.S. Supreme Court. And one of the several lawyers that argued for these women before the U.S. Supreme Court was Thurgood Marshall. And it is because of that case that the United States Supreme Court declared in 1956 that segregated seating on buses and trains was unconstitutional. And what a momentous decision that was, because it was upon the receipt of that decision that Martin Luther King ended the Montgomery bus boycott. So isn't it remarkable that we could have with us today one of the great pioneers that helped to dismantle the system of apartheid in this country? Let us welcome Sister Claudette.
POP and Larry Hams and whoever was responsible for inviting me here to tell my story. This is, as Larry said, my anniversary, 59 years ago. I don't really know So we didn't browse around down at the 5 and 10. So it was about 13 of us. We boarded the Howard Gardens bus and across the street from Dr. King Church on Dexter and Bainbridge. I know some people are familiar with that church. But anyway, it was about 13 students that lived in my community. And so when we boarded the bus, it wasn't full, it wasn't crowded. So we sit where we was allowed to sit. African American, we was called colored in those days. We sitting in the seat where we was locked and there was a few white passengers there. But as the bus proceeded on down Dexter, it became full capacity. And so this young white woman was standing near me and in the rear of the bus, near the rear of the bus. And the bus driver asked for seats. And three of the students got up, reluctantly, and I remained seated. So the problem was, this passenger could have sit opposite me, but the problem is, in Jim Crow South, a white person wasn't supposed to sit across the aisle from a black person. They were supposed to sit in front of the black person. The rule was, in all the transportation system, is that white people sit in front of a black person and black people sit behind that white person. Passengers. That is in order to show that they were superior and we was inferior. So I want to say, answer one. I'm going to answer 3 questions. One of the questions, the reporters, I have told this story so many times. So one of the questions they asked, why didn't I move when the bus driver asked me to get up? And my answer was that I couldn't move because history had me glued to the seat. And one reporter, he said, how is that? Well, I had to go in a long detail because he didn't understand what I was talking about. I said, Negro history, February was Negro history month. But at that time, we wasn't really legally celebrated for the whole month. It was a Negro history week. But since we was taught, we had segregated schooling, the faculty members said that since we were deliberately left out of history, American history, we had to learn, the children, the students, who was all African American, should know about their heroes. And the only way we could learn it is through that month, that opportunity we had to discuss our heroes and all the injustice that existed in the system. So we discussed, at that time, the big thing talk was about Jackie Robinson breaking a baseball barrier. So, and then we discussed all the other people who was activists in the fight for our civil rights. So one was, my favorite one was Harriet Tubman. And another was Sojourner Truth. These were the women, they were my favorite. And I know some of the students might know about Harriet Tubman with the Underground Railroad. And we were saying, what is the Underground Railroad? There's no railroad. So it was called Underground Railroad because this was the safe houses for the runaway slaves. For the one that Harriet was leading, because they called these safe houses the Underground Railroad. when we go on school excursion, we wasn't allowed to enter the front entry. We had to enter at the employees' entrance. And they made sure that there was no white students the day that we visited, that day that we had the tour. So, and then we talked about, we only, in the entertainment, only when the fair comes to town, we only had one day. So, and all the injustice, and then at Booker T. Washington, one of our classmates, one of the students, was on death row, was supposed to be a serial rapist, and his name was Jeremiah Reeves. So we discussed all the injustice. This double standard existed because when a white man raped a young black woman, nothing was done about it. It didn't even go to the jury. It didn't even they just threw it out. So I talked about all the injustice in my essay. My instructor, her name was Miss Geraldine Dusty. And so she said, she saw that I was very, very, very strong in my belief as a young student. And so that's why I told the reporter, that's why history had been moved to the sea. Because we had been discussing this and had these discussions in school about our historical heroes. So then I told most people in the reporter, I said, do you know how it felt? I was paralyzed in my seat because I was so intrigued about Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. These was two African American women. I said it felt like Harriet Tubman was pushing me down, hands were pushing me down on one shoulder, and Sojourner Truth was pushing me down on the other. So that's why I couldn't move when the bus driver asked me to get up. So, and then I wasn't breaking it all. Dissemination, I wasn't sitting in the white section. But in order to Jim Crow law, the bus driver could ask you to get up. Any white person in authority could ask you to do something without really reason, or, not in keeping with the law. That's why the law is considered, called it Jim Crow, because like they make up their own rules. So anyway, the bus driver, I had time to think. Because it proceeded on 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stop, all the way to Court Square. And that was like a little mini depot. Because they had where all the buses made their connection going in either direction, north or south. Then the bus driver hailed a traffic patrolman, and the traffic patrolman come on the bus in the back, and he said, "Gal, why are you sitting there?" I said, "I paid my fare, and it's my constitutional right." So he yelled to the bus driver that he had no jurisdiction here. And so, well, we students thought that was it, So what? If she don't want to sit down, she has a whole seat there to sit down with this white lady. She has a whole seat to herself, but she couldn't sit there because I was sitting in the opposite aisle. And I knew that was really unfair. So the bus driver was, the traffic patrolling. Well, since they're bystanders, they don't want any altercations and no rioting. There's something he had told me, okay, we'll arrest her a block later. So the bus driver, with one block in the same direction of the route of the bus, the regular route. And we thought it was over, so we got to Bill and Conway Street. And that's where I was that was two squad car policemen come to the back door, and they came up, and I was even more defiant. And you know what? They said I was fighting for the scratching kid. I wasn't doing that. And what made them angry is that I was just frozen in my seat. I told you I was paralyzed in the seat. I couldn't move because so John the Truth and Harriet Tubman had me push me down. So I couldn't move. And because I refused to walk out voluntarily, one rail went got down, the other rail got and I don't know how that was. Somebody said we all dragging off backwards, and one was, taking turns and dragging, because I was about a size 6 then. So anyway, I got in, they put me in the, I do remember being put in the patrol car and sticking my arm, they asked me to put my arms out the window, and they put handcuffs on me. And I was taken to City Hall and was booked, and they were saying the policemen were saying all kind of obscenities and, bad things about black girls. They said, they said they were trying to guess my bra size. Yes, then one said, well, we're going to get rid of this black bitch. We're going to send her to an adult. And I know they were just saying that to frighten me, because that is for adult women. That wasn't for juveniles. I knew I had sense enough to know I wasn't going to adult. So anyway, they booked me and they took me to an adult jail. So then, oh my God. So I was cast in hell. They are, I don't know if you children watch this old Western where they have the jail and you hear the keys go click when they close. They were not electronic like today. The keys go click, and they locked me in, and then the panic came over me. And I'm Baptist. And Lord, I started praying, I started singing the 23rd Psalm. I recited every Bible verse I knew, and then keep myself going. We were studying Edgar Allan Poe, and I started reciting some of Edgar Allan Poe's poems. And most of Edgar Allan Poe's poems and most of his stuff is really dreary, weird, kind of dreary, So anyway, I was crying, and I wanted to know whether Mom was going to, the school was going to tell my mother, or whether they was going to just run home and talk about it amongst themselves. But that is, they did come home and tell my parents. And my mother came, and my pastor, H.S. Johnson, came and bailed me out. I stayed in the jail about 3 hours, probably about 3 hours. So anyway, as Reverend Johnson was driving over this, I don't know if you're familiar with the South, but in the old South, there's the railroad track here and the highway here, and there's a little hump. And so like you go over the hump and you can get in and sing, they sing. And Reverend Johnson said, well, Claudette, I think you done brought the revolution in here. So I got home, and my dad said, oh, Claudette, you were so worried about me. He said, baby, you don't put us in a lot of danger. And you didn't say danger because in the South, we don't have a heart. You forget about the heart. A lot of danger. So I said, oh, community in the front and the white community in the back. So we lived on this little elevated land left over called King Hill. It was called, they called it, the white people called it Phyllis Heights. But we renamed it because we knew that they deliberately left it out because they didn't put in indoor plumbing and they didn't pave the street. But yet it's still never gonna let us know. We called ourselves King Hill. We were looking down on all of them. Yes. So anyway, the people that lived on the highway, well, he said the Mason-Dixon line, Dixon, I thought they were driving. The highway on the right side, depending on which way you're going, on one side, the white people was the white community, and the other side was this elevated black hill called King Hill, and it's called the black community. But you could see if the KKK come, was only one way in and one way out. So, and all the King Hills that night stayed up looking for the KKK, but they knew it was going to be some repercussion for my action. And then see the 13 students on the bus, they didn't get up and walk off one by one. See, it was like all of us acting together. So anyway, but I want to let you know, it was an impulsive act. None of us had planned it. It was impulsive. But we had all our young lives of this unfair treatment, and we had such good instructors. There was like minister trying to convert you to religion on February. So we had all that instilled in us. So that's why, and that was a pillar of support for me too. So anyway, we stayed up all night, everything went down. And later on, during the year, another girl was arrested. Her name was Mary Louise Smith. Well, she was arrested in October, but she kept a low profile and she just didn't, her father got her out, paid her fine. And then, during they asked me to come and talk to Mrs. Parks through Evie Nixon was the one who told me to go and talk with Rosa Parks and share my story with her youth group. And so I went to talk with Miss Parks, and Miss Parks, her family, I don't think she mentioned it too much, and you probably read it and all about it. She once lived in Pine Level from the same community that I lived in I lived there until I was 8 years old. But my parents knew Mrs. Parks. But you know how people were moving in those days, they were leaving the rural South, going to the cities, so they lost connection. So when I went there, visit Ms. Parks, she said, you know, Claudette, when I first heard the story, she said, I thought that you was an overgrown teenager that liked to sass white folks. But when I talked to your teachers, she said, then I realized you was intellectually mature enough to know right from wrong and your civil rights. So I said, Mrs. Parks helped me raise money funds for my attorney. She did. I ran for this here in AACP, I didn't win, I won second place. But anyway, going on to tell you the story, since it is my anniversary, I was just going to tell you some important things. I know you read the book that the reason why I was rejected, I Mary Louise Smith Ware, and I was rejected. I was rejected because I was an unwed mother, and Mary Louise Smith Ware was rejected because her father was an alcoholic. That was in Taylor Branch, part out in the water. But the fact is, I was not pregnant March the 2nd. And so anyway, and Mary Lee Smith's grandfather wasn't an alcoholic. He just like everybody else, you know, didn't have air conditioning, shoot the breeze under the shade tree. Yeah, that's it. So, but anyway, and Mrs. Susan McDonald, she was fairer than Mrs. Parks. The bus driver gave an altercation because she, used profanity, and so she got angry with Susan McDonald because she wouldn't let the white person that sit next to her know that she was on color, that she was white. They thought that Mrs. Susan McDonald, the white passenger, thought that Mrs. Susan McDonald was white. And the bus driver got angry at Mrs. Susan McDonald because she wouldn't let the white people know that she had colored blood in her. And Mrs. Aurelia Browder, several times, she had altercation. She called the man Mrs. Browder mouth like this. So they picked her, so they hit. Attorney Fred Gray had to go back to all the people he had rejected. He had to come back because he wanted the men to take, Attorney Fred Gray and the MIA wanted the men to take leadership in taking the case to the Supreme Court. But what happened? They was afraid, the men was afraid. Because that church was, the KK was active, and he went especially to the ministers. So the KK was active, and they was burning the churches. So the men was afraid. So they had to come back to the people, the teenagers who had a child, and they had to come back to the girl whose father was an alcoholic, and the two women whose mouth were too big. So that's why they couldn't, that's why they had to use the full women. And they was advised by other attorneys that they couldn't, they had preferences Parks because she was the typical woman and the iconic figure there in Montgomery because she was the secretary of the NAACP, the adult NAACP branch. So there wasn't Mrs. Parks, but Mrs. Parks was arrested, and Mrs. Parks being mild-mannered, she was only arrested for disorderly conduct. And so they said they did not know whether the only citizen in Montgomery would be willing to stay off the bus another year. So they advised Robert Carter and Thurgood Marshall, and it wasn't just one attorney. They saw that Dr. King was so great, such a great leader, and it was just like a miracle that he had held these Negroes together. But all this law, they didn't want him to lose the case because they had two other cases that was in Tallahassee and Baton Rouge that was a failure. They had stayed on, but it was a failure. So they didn't want him to lose. So they said, in order not to lose this case, Attorney Fred Gray, we advise you to find the four other plaintiffs right away. So they had to come back to the rejects. So anyway, see, you don't really know. That particular day, I did not know that I was going to make history because I had told the student I wasn't going to Alabama State when I graduated from high school. I was going north to study how to free my people like Harriet Tubman. So I'm so glad that we had all these brilliant lawyers and attorneys got together and made a success. See, I'm really disappointed that they don't come out and tell exactly how it went down. There's no, see, because the youth today, the second question is asked by the youth when I do my little presentation. About the same amount, or maybe 200 or 200 people or 100 people or more, they asked me, I think the civil rights movement was a failure. I said, it was not a failure. You know, the reason why I know it was not a failure, but you have to be old enough to know what we accomplished and what went undone. And before I close, another question they asked. I told you it was 3, right? So the last one they want to ask me was, now how, especially from white audience, how do you feel? Oh, you know what I'm going to say. How do you feel that President Obama is the first African American president? I tell them this. Oh, my friend is not here. He was, he done crossed over this. You know what I'm talking about. He said, I have ambivalent feelings about President Barack Obama. I said, like everyone else, that day, that evening, that inauguration evening, I was jumping up just like I just got religion. You know, Baptist people, they get this in religion. They got the shout. So I was jumping up. Thank God, oh Jesus, thank God, thank you, Jesus. And now that he did and was re-elected, I said, well, they can't put so much on Barack Obama's table. I said, Obama, President me, this is my opinion now. I don't have no statistics to prove it. This is just my opinion. I think President Obama was smart enough. He is just like you do, like the garment people do a fabric, cloth, fabric, right? He just tailored one size fit all. He put all our ingredients and everything in one size fit all. That means he's president and this, what Yelvin said, just one size fit all, one thing go for everyone. But we know, we African Americans, we are so far behind in this economic system that we need a little boost, we need a little help. But that's why I said that he has tailored everything so that he doesn't have any, it's less controversial against the African American community. I know he's not only the president for African American community of people, but I wish he would go out with one good thing saying to help us. Because, for instance, there's no reason why we should have losing all our boys to the criminal justice system. That's why we had integration, trying to fight inadequate school system. So we should have better schools and small businessmen. We should have more representatives of black entrepreneurs. But if you're going to go out and help foreigner people solve their problem, why don't you start here, President Obama? That's why, my friend, can you say his name? Ebenezer. Yeah. I don't know, I'm not using it in profanity. But anyway, I love Obama. Don't forget that. I love him. But yet and still, we need him to put a word in before he go out of office. So we don't know what we know what we have, but we do not know what we get in 16. And I don't know how. I just want to say this and thank God that I can tell my story. And you young people, you don't have to feel inferior. we are not where we want to be collectively as African Americans, but thank God Almighty, we're not where we were.
Thank you, Claudette Colvin. I could listen to you for another hour. Good sound advice. She's a passionate, smart woman that I thought she would be. And once again, I'm grateful to you for what you did. And I will just hand her the mic when she gives her answer. I can't have the mic? This is the recording mic. I can't move it? Oh, it's the one here. All right. I'm sorry. You're going to have to stand. Okay. Do we have any questions? Yes.
Did you get a chance to meet Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? And if you did he have anything in particular to say to you?
I only met Dr. King once at a dinner party, but I met him several times at the when he show his face at the basket. He wasn't there every week, but I was a teenager. I couldn't get close to Dr. King. He was like God to the speaker. I couldn't get close to Dr. King, but at a dinner party at Reverend Abernathy's house, he was sitting by the picture window. So picture with her, and he was sitting by the picture, and he got up and he said, "Okay, that was nice to me." And he said, "Claudette, you are a brave young woman." I said, "Thank you, everything."
Wow.
Are we going to be able to pick up okay if we use this mic? Yes? Okay. Another question? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, if you could just say what the
Did you understand the question?
She said, "Who was rejected?" Rejected was me, who had a child out of wedlock, and Mary Louise Smith Ware, whose father was supposed to be an alcoholic. This is documented in Part in the Water by Taylor Branch. And Mrs. Susan McDonald and Mrs. Aurelia Browder, Miles was too mousy. See, they could not, Dr. King wanted, I'm sorry, not Dr. King, Attorney Fred Bray went to the ministers first. But because they found their ministry would not interfere with their economy. I would say their job, they was a minister. But they was afraid because that church was bombed by the KKK. And the reason why they had to come back to the rejects because the time was running out. See, he filed a case February 2nd, 1956. He had a lot of litigation went down. And see, Attorney Fred Gray was not the only attorney. It was several attorneys on that case. I did not know that. And one of the main attorneys was Robert Carter and Thurgood Marshall. They said since Dr. King had made such helped the African Americans together for all of this for a whole year, they didn't want to lose the case. That's why.
Do you want her to move over in this chair? Can we move you over to the chair so they can see you as your answer?
I didn't understand you.
The kid was playing, they say he was fooling around like sitting in front of the bus or something like that, and he killed him.
I don't understand, no, I didn't say that.
Yes, sir.
Two questions. Ms. Nesbitt was very important when you were in school. When's the last time that you talked to her or saw her? And then is there anything that you'd like to tell us about right now?
Mrs. Nesbitt passed away. The only thing, she graduated from Columbia. She got a master's from Columbia. And she was what the faculty called an unorthodox teacher. You know, Mrs. Nesbitt had to use ebonics, and we don't. She didn't say ebonics, but we didn't say ebonics in that. She said use your own language, and she refused to teach grammar because she said if I had to teach grammar, I got to get them at 2 years old.
Yes, ma'am. No, I'm just gonna ask somebody different. If they run out, you had one question. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna go to the young woman there.
Do you think that those
You have to speak loud.
Do you think that Rosa Parks should have mentioned that she did not want to get arrested?
I think after the 25th anniversary, I think Attorney Fred Gray should have said it. I think Attorney Fred Gray should have said that because Mrs. Parks was the spokeswoman for the bus boycott, she was not used in the case that went to the Supreme Court. That's the most important thing. And that it was, well, most everyone knew that they stand for themselves, speak for themselves. I think Attorney Fred Gray should have mentioned it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Gwen Cato, and I'm Ms. William Evans. And thank you for being so strong, because that's what we need, more people willing to stand up and recognize that we have the rights. And with that thought being said, I'd like to know your feelings about today's civil rights movement and how it can become stronger, and where people become more unified in their determination to fight injustices. Because it seems like we're going backwards in employment, in housing, in our rights, generally speaking. And even 27-year-old people are saying this now, and it's very clear. And lack of respect for us is blatant. And sometimes we want to harm ourselves. Okay?
Well, that is a very complicated problem that we have. That's why I was saying that President Obama had taken all our grievances as into one size fit all. And I guess symbolically what I meant is that I think that one thing can take care of all our grievances. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a capitalistic society. And if you, as a community, and what POP is doing, you have to organize at a community level. And then not only as a community level, you got to start parenting. Because something is going down if the mind of a 12-year-old say, well, I'm going to deliver this package and get money for it. I'm not going to flip burgers at Burger King or McDonald's. They want to take the short way out. So they should have the wisdom, the young, older people should do better parenting. And that's the only thing that will bring us together is you got to start with the parents. The reason why I say that, I'm talking from experience. I was a single mom, and you know what it took to get my children through? It was my family. I can be a proud mother, and I'm sitting in this church, and I thank you, Jesus. I have one grandson who is a medical doctor. I have one granddaughter who's an RN. I have another granddaughter right now, that's a little hard, she's in Africa studying. And I have another, two more. One is in Washington, D.C. He was in the military. He in Washington, D.C. now. He's not active now. He's in Washington, D.C. Head of security, one of the office buildings in Washington, D.C. And I have another grandson. He's in Arizona. He's in the Air Force. So I tell my grandchildren that, and I told my son too, I say, in this world, it's not our design, this world that we live in. I said, it's designed by Europeans. And I said, you have to have two heads. And he said, Grandma, what is two heads? Sound like, science fiction thing, right? I said, you know what I mean? I said, you got to have two minds. One, to understand the European people, or what we call the white folks. And the other one is to stay focused or stay grounded. If you do that, you'll get over. And I said, maybe one day, if we have enough elected officials, we can design our own community and try to create better laws. So that's the only thing we're going to do, is to work together in the community.
And then I'll go to the children that are sitting right there. You're next.
Ms. Colvin, I was just wondering, thank you for what you did, first of all, but did any of those fraidy cat men ever come to you and offer you encouragement and thank you for being the strong young woman that you were? Did any of them ever?
No, because my parents, my mother and father, they took African, Southern African American people. They said, girls, hold your head up high. I didn't look back at them, and I didn't go to them, so I cannot answer. I don't know. They never come to me, and they never came to me. All they said was, girl, you brave and crazy.
Okay, the trio there.
What was the scariest part about being in jail?
Honey, locked in. You can't get out.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that question was from all three of you. Come on, stand up.
On your birth certificate, does it still say Claudette Austin or Claudette?
On my birth certificate, my parents never did change it. You know that in the rural South, of the Alabama and Virginia, all the southern states, I don't know all the southern cities, and I know all my classmates. The reason why I say is one of my friends had to go and get her name corrected when she got her marriage license. Because but if you're not, my birth certificate name is still Austin. I was never legally adopted, but in the South, if someone raised you from 18 months, you automatically take that name. So I was raised by my great aunt and her husband, and I was with them for 18 months. So automatically is a Colvin. But I don't know, you asked that, but since I never was married, I don't know how that would go. I would have to. That's a very good question.
It's stumped you. That's not easy to do. Yeah, it's stumped her. Did you have a question, the third gentleman?
African American you admire the most?
Oh, well, I got two lovers. One is my first love is Dr. King, and my second love is Malcolm X.
Thank you. Now, there was a question, yes.
So I'm a mother with a daughter who's going to be 15 in a few weeks. And clearly, you got your courage from those who were willing to support you, who were there, who believed in your conviction as well. So for mothers now, we're raising daughters. What's your advice to us on how to raise civilly aware daughters aware of civil rights, who will stand up, who will speak up, even if they're comfortable, even if it's not applicable to them, but who will look to the community and say, this is an injustice. It doesn't necessarily affect me personally, it affects my community, it affects humanity. How do we raise those kinds of children?
Well, one thing my parents did, but that we don't do today was sit down at the dinner table. We always had a meal at the dinner table. And we always, if you're down south, if you didn't have nothing but cornbread and black eyed peas, you sit down and Kool-Aid. Just sit down and you would have a discussion, and today, parents are so interested in how you look. They tell you got to have, first thing, if you're a minority, you want to get a good education. And do the teachers, do they discuss the teachers? Are the teachers really motivating them? Are they very good leaders? They are just killing time. So you have to get involved in their school. That's the only thing that I can say. Get involved in the school. That'll be a start.
I think that was it for the questions. And I am not going to give the concluding remarks, Mr. Hand is, but I would like to say a few things. First of all, thanks once again for coming out on this Sunday afternoon. I know the weather is threatening. There was discussion yesterday about not having it. I'm glad that we went ahead because I think we all learned something new this afternoon. And I feel elevated by being in the presence of Ms. Colvin, and hopefully you do as well. And just a personal reminder that I think is a take on the last question that was asked. And I have members, I teach an adult Sunday school class, and there are members from that class that are here today. They know that we had a discussion this morning. And one of the points that we talked about was our generation failing generations under us because we may have tried to teach them to be successful, to go to school and to study. But what we did not do successfully is to say you have to be successful and you lift others as you climb. That whatever knowledge you have, whatever finances you have a responsibility to share with other people in your community. And I think that comment was appropriate. That's where we went wrong. So I encourage all of you to not just lift as you climb, but to spread that word to others as well. Now, in that same spirit, you're here, it's warm, the lights are on. Mr. Ham used his gas to go and pick up his Colvin. You have literature that he's distributed. None of that comes from the air. It's all paid for. There are some realities about life, and that's called bills. So we are having a free will offering as you leave this sanctuary today. I ask you to consider being generous. Hopefully you believe in the work that POP is doing, and you believe in the work that this church is trying to do as well. Because not only are we Baptists, but we're political activists. And I always like to say that Bethany is a verb, it's not a noun. We're an active church, and we're active in our community. So we need your help to stay that way. I see a few Jazz Vespers people here. You know, the lights just don't turn on. We have that PSE&G bill as well. All right? So thank you very much, Mr. Hannah. Well, I'm feeling old because I remember him on city council when he was a kid.
My main reason for returning to make some remarks, because Ms. Epps really said it all, was to say thank you to Bethany Baptist Church for letting us have this program here today. Wasn't Claudette Colvin great? He was right. And the free will offering that we're taking will also include an honorarium. I think Ms. Colvin is deserving of it. We should give her really something to take home and make her life a little bit easier. And I want to give a big round of applause to the Bethany Baptist Church Book Club for being the co-sponsor of today's program. Thank you, Ms. Epps and members of the Book Club. And my sister handed me, I didn't even know about this, but my sister handed me a leaflet that Ms. Colvin will be at the Newark Public Library on Wednesday, March 5th. You didn't tell me that on the radio. Wednesday, March 5th at 6:30 p.m. So those of you who get your... Oh, it's canceled? Are you sure?
I know I didn't know anything about it.
Oh, it's canceled. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody gave me a leaflet. I was trying to do my time. The person who gave me the leaflet, is it on or off? Is it on or off?
Rescheduled it due to pending weather.
Oh, it's rescheduled. Okay, all right. So, do you have the new date? Do you have the new date? Do you have the new date? She doesn't have it yet. Thank you. Okay. Let me also announce that the People's Organization for Progress, we're trying to bring other heroes and heroines from the civil rights movement. How many of you know about the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church? Yes. This year, 2014, is the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. One of the primary reasons that the Civil Rights Act was passed by Congress was because of the sympathetic environment that was created after the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church and the murder of those 4 little girls. Now, one of the girls that died in the 16th Street Baptist Church was Addie Mae Collins. There were 4 who were killed, but there were about 15 others that were injured. One of those was her sister, Sarah, that was at the church that day. People's Organization for Progress will be bringing Sarah Rudolph Collins here on the 27th of March. She's coming to Abyssinian Baptist Church on March 27th, so everyone is invited to that. It will be at 6:30 on March 27th, Thursday, March 27th at the Abyssinian Baptist Church. Sarah Collins lost her sight as a result of the bombing, but she regained sight in one eye. So we are flying her and her husband up here to be with us on the 27th. So we hope everybody will spread the word and come out to hear her story. And then we are returning to Bethany on April 2nd and co-sponsoring with the Board of Deacons, Dr. Cornell West. He will be here on April the 2nd. I believe that is a Wednesday night, and that program will be at 6:30 p.m. also on Wednesday. April 2nd. So I invite you to come to both of those programs. And I would also like to invite everyone here to join the People's Organization for Progress. We are a grassroots organization. We are all